In a Fresno County courtroom, the air hung heavy with anticipation and grief. Years after a violent act shattered a family, the legal process reached its somber conclusion. This was the day of reckoning for Joe Gomez Jr. He stood before the court, convicted of grave offenses. The jury had delivered its verdict, finding him responsible for the death of one man and the severe injury of another. The consequences of his actions were about to be formally pronounced. The charges against Gomez were stark: the murder of Israel Trevino Jr. and the attempted murder of Israel Trevino III. These were not abstract legal terms. They represented a life taken and a life forever altered. The weight of these convictions pressed down on the courtroom. Judge Arlen Harrell presided over the proceedings. His role was to deliver the sentence mandated by law, a sentence reflecting the severity of the crimes proven in court. The families involved, the legal teams, and the defendant himself awaited the final judgment. The sentence handed down to Joe Gomez Jr. was life imprisonment, a sentence that signifies the end of freedom, a lifetime behind bars for the lives he impacted. It was the law's ultimate response to the jury's findings. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. The moment the judge finalized the sentence, the fragile calm in the courtroom shattered. The legal pronouncement, intended to bring closure through justice, instead ignited a raw, visceral reaction. The tension that had built over the trial and sentencing exploded. Israel Trevino III, the man who survived the attack that killed his father, could no longer contain his anguish. The finality of the life sentence, while perhaps expected, unleashed a torrent of emotion that transcended the formal setting of the court. He reacted instantly and violently. He charged forward, his focus locked on Joe Gomez Jr. The physical barrier separating the gallery from the defendant became the target of his desperate fury. He attempted to breach the court gate, to physically reach the man convicted of killing his father and shooting him. A storm of anguished threats poured from him. His words were not measured or legal. They were the raw expression of pain, loss, and a desperate need for retribution. The courtroom, a place of procedure and order, was momentarily overwhelmed by this primal scream. Among the specific threats hurled across the courtroom was a vow to hunt Gomez. It was a declaration born of deep-seated rage and a feeling that justice, even a life sentence, could not fully address the magnitude of his loss and suffering. The words hung in the air, shocking the formal setting. Another chilling threat was the vow to eat your fucking heart. This extreme language underscored the depth of the trauma and hatred felt by Trevino III. It was a metaphor for consuming the very essence of the man who had taken so much from him. Amidst the chaos, two specific shouts cut through the noise, revealing the core of his pain. He screamed, "That was my dad!" This simple phrase encapsulated the immense personal loss that fueled his outburst. It was a cry of a son mourning his father. He also screamed, "You couldn't take me, huh?" This referred to the fact that he survived the shooting, unlike his father. It was a defiant challenge to the man who had tried to kill him, an assertion of his survival in the face of violence. Court security personnel reacted swiftly. Their training dictates immediate intervention in such volatile situations. They moved to prevent Trevino III from reaching the defendant, acting as a physical barrier against the emotional storm. Trevino III was physically restrained by the officers. It took multiple individuals to control him, highlighting the intensity of his struggle. The scene was one of controlled chaos, with security personnel working to restore order while managing a man consumed by grief and rage. The entire incident, though dramatic and intense, lasted only a couple of minutes. In the context of a lengthy legal process, it was a brief explosion, but its impact was profound. A raw display of the human cost of the crime. The formal proceedings were momentarily halted by this eruption of pain. Judge Arlen Harrell, the presiding judge, observed the outburst. He acknowledged the evident emotional distress that prompted Trevino III's actions. The court recognized that the pain driving the outburst was real and directly linked to the tragedy at the heart of the case. However, the judge also had a duty to maintain order and respect for the judicial process. He reprimanded Trevino III for the outburst, making it clear that such behavior, while understandable in its origin, was unacceptable within the courtroom setting. The rules of the court must be upheld. Judge Harrell emphasized the need to respect court proceedings. The courtroom is a place for the formal administration of justice, and its integrity relies on adherence to rules and procedures. Even in the face of overwhelming emotion, the legal process must be allowed to conclude. The judge also specifically instructed Trevino III not to take his anger out on court staff. The security personnel and other court officers were simply doing their jobs, maintaining safety and order. They were not responsible for the events that led to the sentencing or the pain felt by the victim's family. Adding to the efforts of court security, Trevino's own family members also intervened. They moved to hold him back, attempting to calm him and prevent him from further escalating the situation. Their actions showed a desire to protect him and restore some semblance of control amidst the turmoil. To understand the depth of the emotion displayed in the courtroom, it is necessary to examine the events that led to that day. The story begins on a specific date, a day that changed everything for the Trevino family. That date was May 2, 2021. A location of the crime was outside the Trevino family home in Parlier, California. A place that should have been a sanctuary became the scene of a violent confrontation. The events unfolded in a residential setting, bringing the danger directly to their doorstep. The conflict did not arise out of nowhere. Evidence presented during the trial indicated that Joe Gomez Jr. had a history of harassing the Trevino family. This was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of ongoing tensions and provocations. The harassment reportedly included actions like revving his engine loudly near their home. Such acts, while seemingly minor on their own, contributed to a climate of intimidation and conflict, building resentment and fear over time. This history set the stage for the tragic events to come. On the day of the shooting, this history of harassment escalated into a direct confrontation. The details of what exactly triggered the final deadly interaction were central to the trial, but the outcome was a violent clash between Gomez and the Trevino family members. The confrontation had a fatal outcome for one member of the family. Joe Gomez Jr. fatally shot Israel Trevino Jr. This act ended a life and inflicted an irreparable wound on the family and community. The violence had reached its most tragic conclusion. The violence also resulted in injury to another family member. Israel Trevino III, the man who would later erupt in court, was shot multiple times during the incident. He survived his injuries, but the physical and emotional scars were profound and lasting. During the legal process, Joe Gomez Jr. offered a defense for his actions. He claimed self-defense, arguing that he was justified in using deadly force. This claim was central to his case and was presented to the jury for their consideration. The case proceeded to trial, where all the evidence, testimony, and legal arguments were presented. The prosecution sought to prove Gomez's guilt, while the defense aimed to establish his claim of self-defense or argue for lesser charges. The fate of Joe Gomez Jr. rested with a jury of his peers. After hearing all the evidence and deliberating, the jury reached a decision. Their verdict was a rejection of Gomez's self-defense claim and an affirmation of the prosecution's case. The jury found Joe Gomez Jr. guilty on all counts brought against him. The guilty verdicts included first-degree murder for the death of Israel Trevino Jr. This finding indicated the jury believed the killing was premeditated or occurred during the commission of another felony, signifying a high level of culpability under the law. He was also found guilty of attempted murder for shooting Israel Trevino III. This verdict confirmed the jury's belief that Gomez intended to kill Trevino III, even though the attempt was unsuccessful. The multiple shots fired supported this charge. Additionally, the jury found him guilty of assault with a deadly weapon. This charge likely related to the use of the firearm in the confrontation, covering the act of using the weapon in a dangerous manner, separate from the murder and attempted murder charges. The combined verdicts painted a clear picture of the jury's view of the events of May 2, 2021. The jury's decision paved the way for the sentencing hearing. It was this verdict, finding Gomez guilty on all counts including first-degree murder, that led directly to the life sentence pronounced by Judge Harrell. And it was that sentence that triggered the raw, unforgettable outburst in the courtroom, a stark reminder of the human cost behind the legal proceedings. The justice system had run its course, but the pain endured.